General Winfield Scott was the commander of the Union Army. His plan to defeat the Confederacy had three main parts: blockade all eastern and southern ports in the Confederate States, so if all southern ports were blocked, it would stop the South's income from its export of crops. It would also keep the South from importing products it needed, including war supplies, medicine, and household goods. Divide the South by taking control of the Mississippi River was his second part. And lastly, control the Tennessee Valley and march through Georgia to the coast. This was the Anaconda Plan.
The Battle of Bull Run was the first major land battle of the armies in Virginia. On July 16, 1861, the untired Union Army, under Brig Gen. Irvin McDowell, marched from Washington against a Confederate army who was led by General Stonewall Jackson, and two other generals who later died in the battle. The battle took place near Manassas Junction, Virginia, 25 miles from Washington, D.C. Along a little-known river known as Bull Run, fighting raged throughout the day as Confederate forces were driven back to Henry Hill by an attempted left flank from the Federals. Later in the afternoon, Confederate reinforcements extended and broke the Union right flank. More and more reinforcements came from the Confederates until there was an equal amount of men, 1,800 to 1,800. A Confederate general, Beauregard, ordered a counterattack breaking through the Union lines, forcing them to retreat back to Washington in July 22.
This is a very interesting battle. I think we, the Union...
Hey, what are you doing over there?
Though the Union retreated, the Confederates could not pursue them due to disorganization. This defeat convinced the Lincoln administration that the war could be a long and costly affair. McDowell was relieved of command of the Union Army and replaced by Major Gen. George B. McClellan, who set about reorganizing and training the troops.
The Battle of Antietam occurred near Sharpsburg, Maryland by Antietam Creek on September 17, 1862. Confederate General, the one and only Robert E. Lee, was trying to boost the Confederate cause in Maryland, which was a border state at the time. Lee's army was pitted against George McClellan's Army of the North. Lee had a plan to invade the North, but McClellan learned of his plans. Instead of retreating, Lee decided to face McClellan's army in Sharpsburg, Maryland. What followed was one of the bloodiest battles of the war.
Hello, I am Robert E. Lee, and this is a gun I will be using to defeat Antietam Creek and those boys just standing over there. This is going to mark a turn point in the Civil War and for history for generations. All right, are we ready? I'm not. Coming
White people are weird.
McClellan's attacks on the sectors of the Confederate Army pushed the Confederates back from Maryland. Lee finally retreated back to Virginia. The battle left many casualties. Over 12,000 people were confirmed dead, wounded, or missing. Despite the casualties, this battle was a turning point in the war. This victory provided Abraham Lincoln the military progress which he had desired for a while. Lincoln used this victory to issue the Emancipation Proclamation, which declared all slaves in the rebelling states as free. This enlarged the purpose of the Civil War, as people were now fighting over slavery instead of just an effort to preserve the Union.
In the summer of 1863, Major General Ulysses S. Grant's army converged on Vicksburg, and trapping a Confederate army under Lieutenant General John Pemberton. The city was located on a high bluff, and Union occupation of the town was critical to control of the strategic Mississippi River. Grant's bold 6-week plan began in early June and took his army south through Arkansas opposite Vicksburg, crossed the river 30 miles below the city, captured the Mississippi capital of Jackson, turned west, and pushed Pemberton's army into Vicksburg itself. Grant's army surrounded Pemberton and outnumbered him 2-1.
Hey, look over there. I think there's a Southern soldier over there. They have like no weapons and they have like no soldiers. Let's go attack. Let's go. Let's go.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
Historically accurate.
This is the final battle to split the Confederacy. They are hidden in their trenches and in their fortifications. We have to win. Yeah!
Okay, let's go.
Attack! Retreat! 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 After 2 failed attempts, let's just siege them. And don't let any supplies in or out. Don't let him leave!
I'm so hungry. There's no supplies.
After 2 failed attempts to capture the city, Grant decided to besiege the city. With no reinforcements coming, food and supplies nearly gone, and after holding out for more than 40 days, Pemberton finally surrendered on July 4th. With the loss of Pemberton's army at Vicksburg and the Union victory at Port Hudson 5 days later, the Union controlled the entire Mississippi River and the Confederacy was effectively split in half.
The Battle of Gettysburg has been regarded as the most famous battle of the Civil War by historians. The battle took place from July 1st to 3rd, 1863 in Pennsylvania. The Confederates, led by Robert E. Lee, attempted to invade the northern states starting with Pennsylvania. George C. Meade's troops met the Confederate invasion, and what lasted was a 3-day bloody battle.
Charge!
This battle marked yet another turning point in the Civil War and American history. The Battle of Gettysburg was the most crucial and bloodiest battle of the war with 50,000 casualties. Confederate General George Pickett's famous but unsuccessful charge destroyed a key part of the Confederate Army, leaving the rest of Lee's forces to retreat back to Virginia.
General William Tecumseh Sherman had led an army of destruction with around 60,000 soldiers on a 285-mile march from Atlanta to Savannah, Georgia. Sherman stole food and livestock from the Confederates, while his men would set fire to houses and barns if anyone who would stand in their way of finishing his expedition. Sherman had first taken over Atlanta as it was a major railroad hub along with warehouses and goods the Confederates needed. Then 3 weeks later, they arrived in Savannah, Georgia, and he spread his group into 2 wings so that they could contain the Confederate soldiers. When he arrived, no one was there, as Confederate soldiers recently fled from Savannah after Sherman's troops took over Fort McAllister. The Confederates fell back again, and then he made it to Charleston, South Carolina, where the Confederates eventually gave up and surrendered, and that was the end of Sherman's march. Now here is a detailed reenactment of Sherman's march.
Alright, so, last play of the drive. This is for the Super Bowl. Our last few possessions haven't been very successful, okay? So, Rohit, record, Jeffrey.
You're going to be running the ball, okay? You're going to go over here, okay? We're going to use our total war strategy. There's going to be Confederate houses and resource locations here, here, here. And then Rohit, you're going to block along, you're going to fake over here for some reason, and you're just going to block over here, even though the ball's over here, and then you're going to kill the soldiers. Yes, the soldiers. Attack soldiers at key points, also try to take out some resource base. This is our total war. We are flanking on either side, and then they're just going to be in this general area, and then we can go all the way to Fort McCain and destroy it, and then we'll have to make them surrender, okay? So, take these out, and we can get that touchdown. We win, alright? Yeah!
Alright, Jeffrey snaps the ball, Rohit steps back to pass. Jeffrey has the ball. Usman gets tackled. Oh, they're going. Oh, past the defenders. They are destroying all of the Confederate stuff. They are going. Oh my gosh, they are doing, and Usman is down. Touchdown, Jeffrey. He just hit the ceiling. Rohit's mom's going to have to pay a lot of money for that later. Oh, touchdown.
A pass at the goal line when you have Marshawn Lynch.
In the end, Sherman and the Union Army's commander, Lieutenant Grant, believed that the Civil War would come to an end only if the Confederate strategic, economic, and physiological capacity for warfare were decisively broken. Sherman had taken over Fort McAllister by the Orgeechee River and severed supplies the Confederacy could no longer get.
Give me everything.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me!